Hello and welcome to the Canada News with your host Gurdwara. Now let's take a look on the headlines. Fire breaks out at home in Edmonton's Parkdale neighborhood. 7 arrested in violent Mississauga kidnapping. The vaccine rollout accelerating in Canada. Things are starting to get back to normal with British Columbia taking the lead. Now news in detail. A home in Edmonton's Parkdale neighborhood was damaged after a fire broke out. Edmonton's Fire Rescue Services said it received multiple 911 calls about the fire in the area of 83 streets and 117 Avenue beginning at 2:41 p.m., including reports of a loud bang and heavy black smoke. EFRS said crews arrived within 4 minutes and found a working fire at a 2-story home. A hazmat team was brought in because there were propane tanks at the address. No injuries were reported according to the EFRS. Armela Zumbo, a neighbor of the owner of the affected house, told that she heard a loud bang when she got home. She also said there were tons of flames coming out of the roof against the house. She was saddened by the fire because the homeowner put so much work into the house. Peel Region Police say they began investigating reports of a kidnapping of an adult male in the city of April 10. The victim was found 14 hours late in the Malton near Airport Road and suffering from what police describe as serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Facing a number of charges including kidnapping and aggravated assault are Gurwinder Dhillon, Manjinder Dhinsa, Harpal Dhillon and Khalid Brahi of Brampton, Lakhveer Singh and Just Puneet Bajwa of Mississauga and Ramanpreet Singh of No Fixed Address. Anyone with the information on the case is asked to call Peel Police or leave any anonymous tip via Crime Stoppers. The vaccine rollout accelerating in Canada. Things are starting to get back to normal with British Columbia taking the lead. The announcement was made by Premier John Hargan, who said the ban would be lifted in the 4 stages. Under the first stage, 5 guests can come in the house and up to 10 people can gather outside. In addition, 50 people are allowed to gather at the wedding, but out of the reason, restrictions will continue until June 15.
BC's safe restart plan will be guided by safely reopening businesses, resuming activities, and returning to normal life over 4 steps. Now, we won't be doing this all at once. We will be doing it slowly based on where the science takes us, ensuring all the while that we put safety first. And we do this by monitoring infections in the community, by making sure that we keep hospitalizations down, and we make sure that our ICUs are not at capacity. And the way we do that is by making sure that our vaccination rates continue to go up. The circuit breaker restrictions that we put in place 6 weeks ago have accomplished what they set out to do. We've seen these restrictions reduce transmission rates and give our vaccine rollout time to take effect. And the vaccination rollout is what got us to this point in the first place. And if we continue to see vaccinations go up, we'll be able to move to the next stages of the restart faster. But as we move to phase 1 of the official plan, we need to make sure that we have metrics in place so the public understands where we are and where we want to go. Obviously, vaccination rates will be a key part of that, but so will transmission, case counts, as well as hospitalizations. And it's not just about the dates, it's also about the data. The restart plan focuses, of course, on today as step 1, and then subsequent steps as we go through the summer. That will all be guided by case counts, by vaccination rates, by hospitalizations. And Dr. Henry will go into more detail on that in a few moments. But starting today, British Columbia will reopen with a series of 4 steps. And it starts by lifting the circuit breaker restrictions that have been in place for some 6 weeks now. And what does that mean for British Columbians? It means you'll be able to enjoy a meal in a restaurant with some friends. It means you'll be able to have more guests over to your home or have a barbecue tonight in your backyard. It means that travel within your regions will be okay, but we want to stay in those 3 key regions, the island, the rest of British Columbia, and the Lower Mainland. The observations to stay local have been lifted, but the restrictions on travel have not. We want people to continue to use their common sense, not just in terms of where you travel and how you act, but also being guided by what your impact could be on not just yourself and your family, but others in the community.
Canada's Procurement Minister Anita Anand claimed that Canada is receiving millions of doses from various suppliers, adding that 25 million doses had been sent to provinces and territories. According to Anand, she is in the constant talks with the Moderna and has promised millions of the doses in June, and the government is committed to giving all Canadians the first shot by the end of June and fully vaccinating Canadians by September.
Let's be clear that, as the Prime Minister said, the benefit of our diversified portfolio is that it allows Canada to pull in millions and millions of doses from multiple suppliers. We have 25 million doses distributed in Canada to date, 21 million doses administered. In terms of your specific question relating to Moderna, the supplier has communicated to us that millions of doses are expected to be delivered in June, and that the first shipment will come in the first part of June. I spoke with Moderna this morning, actually, and my team has been on the phone with them over the past weeks, including over the past weekend. The point that I have repeatedly stressed to Moderna is the urgent need for a delivery schedule relating to June and July deliveries. But rest assured, we will be receiving millions of doses from Moderna during the month of June. We are awaiting a delivery schedule from Moderna itself. Canada remains very much on track to receive vaccines for eligible Canadians to receive a first shot by the end of June, and for all Canadians to be fully vaccinated by the end of September. Figure of 40 million provided by the Public Health Agency of Canada represents only confirmed deliveries. That is, only confirmed delivery schedules are provided to the provinces and territories, and that information hasn't changed. What that number doesn't take into account is the 1 million doses from AstraZeneca that we are expecting in late June, and the millions and millions of doses that we are expecting from Moderna in June as well. And so, as the Prime Minister said, we are very much on track to have vaccines for all eligible Canadians to receive their first shot by the end of June, for all Canadians to be fully vaccinated by the end of September. And as soon as the delivery schedule comes in from Moderna, I will be sure to share it with the Public Health Agency of Canada and, of course, the provinces and territories. Moderna is not in breach of the contract. As I said, I spoke with them this morning. They do intend to deliver millions and millions of doses in the month of June to Canada, with the first shipment in the first part of the month.
Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown claims everything will be back to normal soon because cases are declining in the province and 70% of the people in the Peel region have been vaccinated. According to the mayor, pop-up clinics have played a key role in this. The mayor also said Brampton has made a significant contribution to maintaining Canada's supply chain during the pandemic, and many tons of food have been delivered to Canadians.
We now have over 70% of Peel region vaccinated over the age of 18. And so with those vaccines, cases are going to go down dramatically. We're already seeing it. We saw the provincial numbers a few weeks ago that were in the 4,000 range, and now we're down to over 1,000. And so we're seeing very encouraging progress. And so as much as I've been critical and worried in the last 6 months about the lack of vaccines or the lack of support, for the first time I can say confidently that I feel optimistic about the weeks ahead. Is looking at every way possible to get people to put a needle in their arm and protect their friends, family, and community. And so Peel Public Health has those sites on their website, those locations, but whether it is faith-based pop-up clinics, workplace pop-up clinics, the general vaccine sites, the Embassy Grand site, which is multilingual, the one at the Civic Center, there's going to be one at the CA Center, the list goes on and on. There's no lack of opportunities to get vaccinated. And so unless you're living under a rock, but Brampton has carried a large burden over the last year and a half. And frankly, there needs to be appreciation from coast to coast, the critical role that Brampton played during the pandemic. Brampton helped maintain Canada's supply chain. And let me explain that. The way this virus works is it isn't fair and it isn't equitable. It moves faster in a crowded factory than it does in a rural setting. It moves faster in a densely populated urban area than it would in the comfort of someone's home, an executive working from home. And so this meant that because of the nature of Brampton's workforce, where we have tons of food processing companies, transportation, logistics companies, that we were really vulnerable. And when they had these lockdowns, there was exemptions for essential workplaces. And so when they had a lockdown, some cities would essentially be a ghost town. There'd be no activity. That was never the case in Brampton. And we had essential workers going to work day in, day out at a risk to their own health. And Canada's supply chain was intact. People had groceries from coast to coast. We had medical supplies coming into the country.
The condition of the COVID-19 in Ontario has been steadily improving since the last update, said Dr. Yaffe, Associate Medical Officer of Ontario. He also said that the number of positive cases recorded every day since Thursday is less than 2,000. He said that today 139 cases were reported in the province.
I am pleased to report that since the last provincial update last Thursday, Ontario's daily case count has remained below 2,000 cases per day and has been gradually going down. Day after day, this breakdown goes to 1,890 cases on Friday, 1,794 cases on Saturday, 1,691 cases on Sunday, 1,446 cases yesterday, and today, 1,039 cases. This is incredibly encouraging, and we have not seen these daily numbers since early March. These latest numbers bring our 7-day average down by 26% over last week when we had 1,693 daily cases as an average. Unfortunately, we are reporting an additional 103 deaths since Friday, and that includes 33 today. As always, we extend our deepest sympathies to the families, friends, and caregivers of those who have passed away from COVID-19 and to everyone mourning the death of a loved one. We continue to see improvements in the number of hospitalizations and ICU admissions. Today, there are 1,025 people in hospital with COVID-19. That's up from 983 on Monday, but significantly down from 1 week ago, where we had 1,484 people in hospital. There are also 692 people in ICU, and that is up from 687 yesterday, but down from 764 last week. These trends remain encouraging, but the numbers are still high, and they represent people who are very ill from this disease.
Ontario's Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Williams has confirmed that there has been one death in the province in connection with the AstraZeneca vaccine. He said that there have been cases of blood clots with this vaccine. He said the man who died must have been vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine, but the final cause of death has not yet been determined.
I'd like to also express my condolences to the loved ones, the individuals who passed away from COVID-19, 33 alone reported today. And of course, the one individual who passed away, who died with VITT. Our thoughts are with those members of the family who are in these difficult and challenging times, and we're seeing more and more in that younger age group, those under the age of 70, and some of the younger ones even under the age of 40. So we are concerned as we continue to see the impacts of these variants in our populations. But at the same time, as Dr. Yaffe's alluded to, with our vaccinations increasing down to younger and younger age groups, we're closing that off as quickly as we can, and noting that our rates of testing is dropping as well, and our percent positivity, which is a week ago we were up in the 7s, with the same weekend dip, we're now in the low 6s. So these are all important. We've given over 8.2 million doses of vaccine, and we're heading up, trying to get closer to that 65% first dose coverage level in there, and starting to do some second dosing as well. So our first task always was to get as many people as possible, and we want those who are thinking about it to make sure you go forward and get your first dose of the vaccine. And we say that you should go as soon as you get your appointment, whether that's the Pfizer or the Moderna, knowing those are the ones we're offering right now for first dose. And we understand that some people may recognize the name Pfizer more than Moderna because we've had a lot more volume of that. But both are mRNA vaccines. Both have the same level of efficacy or effectiveness, I should say, as in there, and they're both deemed to be safe and of good performance as far as that is concerned. So we don't want anyone turning down the opportunities to get vaccinated when that comes. Now we have everyone 18 above, and we're starting to move into the youth in that with the 12 to 17s.
Ontario's Minister of Labour, Training and Skill Development, Monty McNaughton, has announced $5 million fund for health professionals in Ontario. This fund has been released for the purpose of training the employees associated with the health sector.
I have to just first begin by thanking my colleague and congratulate her, MPP Nina Tangri, who's the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Nina, I know you've worked really closely with the Premier and with our government in attracting new businesses to Mississauga and into Ontario. So thank you and congratulations for all the work you're doing and in bringing these companies here and creating jobs locally. So thank you. As Nina said, this past year really has shown us just how important our healthcare workers are to the strength of all of our communities right across Ontario. These heroes have been on the front line since day one, and we would not be where we are today without any of them. To our nurses, PSWs, and so many more, thank you for your service. Because of you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Standing behind our front line has been an army of medical innovators. Workers across health sciences professions have been developing new vaccines, medical devices, and examination tools. And while we are closing the book on this deadly virus soon, the need to continue to innovate is not going away. Instead, we now have the opportunity to build on the progress that we've made. And with that comes a need for more business development professionals in the health sciences. These are the people that help companies bring in investments and grow. In short, as more of our businesses focus on using science to solve problems in the medical field, whether that's researching and developing a new drug or a new tool, they need support in getting investors interested. These kinds of skills don't come from out of nowhere. They need to be developed over time, so entrepreneurs can scale up their businesses and make our province competitive in the health sciences marketplace.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, looking at the state of the coronavirus in Manitoba, Trudeau said the federal government is planning to deploy more medical staff in Manitoba, adding that the deployment of the Red Cross as well as the armed forces is being discussed in Manitoba.
There are lots of reasons to be hopeful, but that doesn't mean we can let our guard down yet. In a number of places, we're still facing a very serious third wave. Last Friday, I reached out to Premier Pallister about the extremely concerning situation in Manitoba. I also had a call with Mayor Brian Bauman of Winnipeg. I let them both know that the federal government is ready to do whatever it takes to keep Manitobans and all Canadians safe. As soon as a province asks for more assistance, we're there to help. That's why, in anticipation of Manitoba's official request for additional support to manage the situation, we're preparing to deploy federal health human resources. We're also looking at deploying medical staff through the Canadian Red Cross and sending support from the Canadian Armed Forces. In just a few moments, Minister Carr will speak more about additional support from Manitoba and what we're already doing in the province. Since the beginning of this crisis, our government has worked closely with all provinces and territories to make sure everyone is safe. And as long as this pandemic lasts, that's exactly what we're going to continue to do. Mr. Floyd's death was a tragedy, and it was a reminder that there are still too many people living with anti-Black racism and injustice, including here in Canada. Last summer, Canadians, and especially young people, marched to demand change. From economic empowerment through the Black Entrepreneurship Program to proposing to remove ineffective mandatory minimums from the criminal code to historic investments in community organizations, our government is working with Black communities across the country to make sure nobody is left behind. We will continue to take real action to fight systemic racism and create more opportunities for Black Canadians and for everyone.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh talks on the first anniversary of the George Floyd assassination in Minneapolis. Jagmeet Singh also discussed the increase in bank's fees during the corona pandemic. They discussed preventing elections during the pandemic.
I want to start off by reflecting on the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's killing. And at the time, what we witnessed collectively was one of the most brutal, widely shared capturing of a Black man being killed by police. And it spurred more activism. The Black Lives Matter movement was already a movement, but it spurred certainly more activism, more participation, and people demanding that this stop. And at the same time, we weren't insulated in Canada. We saw that police were responsible for the deaths of Canadians in Canada as well. And so when thousands of people took to the street demanding that something happen, we saw Justin Trudeau go to a Black Lives Matter protest and take a knee, which seems to be all for show, because a year later, and there still has not been any concrete action to deal with systemic racism in policing in Canada. And I want to really emphasize this point. The material conditions for Indigenous or Black or racialized people has not changed. Their experiences when it comes to the police has not changed. So really what Justin Trudeau did, taking that knee, was all for show. This is the Prime Minister of Canada who could clearly take action when it comes to immediately banning racial profiling at the federal level, whether it is ensuring clearly that there's a review of force or making sure if someone's dealing with a healthcare crisis, they don't have armed police officers showing up at their front doors, issuing aggressive voice commands, but a healthcare worker that deals with people in a healthcare crisis. These are changes that could have been done.
City News announced this morning that about 65% of Toronto adults have so far received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Thousands of locals were vaccinated at the pop-up clinics. Children up to age of the 12 were among those vaccinated. The medical officer of health, Dr. Alina Davila, said in a press release that it was a great achievement that 65% of the adults over the age of 18 in Toronto were vaccinated. The first dose has been applied. This means that 2 out of every 3 adults in the city have been vaccinated. She also said that this explanatory work is not only the result of the efforts of Team Toronto, but also a commitment of the people of Toronto to achieve this goal. So that's all we have in this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updated news.